Hello everyone, this is Kus and you're on the Kus-Kus Racing channel. For a while I actually switched from sim racing to becoming a pilot, playing various flight simulators and thoroughly testing the new Moza AB9 force feedback base. This is a force feedback base designed for flight simulators. To be honest, this is truly my very first experience, so I'm afraid I won't have much to compare it to at all. While I've certainly tried a lot of different wheels for various car simulators, this is the absolute first force feedback base for flight simulators that I've ever actually gotten my hands on. And there's definitely something significant to talk about. During my testing of this base, I played Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and of course the most hardcore simulator DCS. Oh, and about the second one, it's really intense. I spent 3 days just learning the plane and I still didn't master it completely. I flew the Su-27, the F-16 and a couple of other planes as well. So let me answer the question about force feedback right away. If we're talking about Microsoft Flight Simulator, the force feedback there is, well, it's okay. The coolest effects are when you can feel the propeller, and when you deploy the flaps, you can feel the stick vibrating. And yes, I did try out different setups from Moza Cockpit. This is a PC application similar to how we use Moza Pit House for car simulators, but Moza Cockpit is for flight simulators. And there I tried different presets for jet aircraft, for small planes like Cessnas and so on. And yes, I should mention right away, you absolutely have to launch games from the Moza Cockpit application, otherwise the force feedback in the game won't work. So in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the coolest wow effect was when I lowered the landing gear, deployed the flaps, and you could actually feel the stick vibrating. Well, plus, of course, there's resistance, but all of that doesn't even come close to what you get in the DCS simulator. That's where this particular base truly shows what it can do. To start with, I first tried to master the Su-27 and the stick felt really quite light there. Let me just show you right now. Don't worry, we'll talk about the software separately. Just pay close attention right here. See how incredibly easily I can move this control stick. It's literally very easy to manipulate and very responsive. And well, I really like that feeling. But then I subsequently switched to flying the F-16, and right now I've switched the profile to the F-16, and notice, you can barely move it. So it's really hard to move this side stick because in the F-16, in the real F-16, the side stick uses. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Is a side stick just for civil aviation or does it work for military aircraft too? Because honestly, I'm not really an expert on this. Even in the game, when you look at your control stick, the side stick, it only moves at very small angles. It's the same here, you work with minimal angles, the base is clamped down as much as possible under tension, and to move it any further you have to put in quite a bit of effort. Because of this, my control in this game was pretty jerky and unusual for me. If you move the plane just a little to the left or right, it immediately starts to sway like this. But over time you get used to it and realize that it's actually kind of cool and more convenient because you're working with such small angles, you start doing everything more sensitively. You really feel the plane. Overall, there's a huge difference between the planes, just an absolutely massive difference. In DCS, when you make a turn, you can really feel the air on the wing, you know? You feel how it flows over the winglets, flaps, spoilers, all of that is noticeable. You can feel the vibration. You can even see it in the game itself when you're flying, how your ailerons, those little winglets, are twitching. It's the same here, everything works like that. Plus, again, when you lower the landing gear, you can feel that rumble as they come down. So it's all really cool, it's awesome. When you go into a stall or something, it's the same thing, it all gets transmitted to the stick. But again, guys, all of this is in the DCS Flight Simulator. When playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, maybe it's because those are civilian planes, but I picked in Microsoft Flight Simulator, that one from Top Gun, the Maverick or whatever it's called, a military jet. I flew it around, but it's just not quite the same, not at all. That's precisely why I really do think Microsoft Flight Simulator just doesn't have the best feedback compared to DCS. If you fly in IL-2 Sturmovik or some other flight simulators, I think it'll be great there too. Or maybe that's how it's supposed to be because this simulator is primarily for civil aviation. And my subscribers have told me that on airliners, on civil aircraft, you generally shouldn't really have that kind of feedback anyway. So once again, I am not truly an expert here because my channel is more about racing simulators. Now let's talk a bit more about the software itself because a lot truly depends on its proper functioning. First of all, You absolutely need to launch your games from within the software and configure them right here in the launcher so that your force feedback works properly and effectively. The most important thing here, without a doubt, is the profiles. Unfortunately, in my opinion, having only 22 profiles isn't really a lot at all. And here I think is a significant drawback, because the software, again, comparing it to the sophisticated software for car simulators, still seems a bit underdeveloped. There's no Russian language option here, but overall it's not that hard to figure out. Also, every slider here fully explains what it controls. You can adjust and calibrate the device right away. You click on automatic calibration, and well, everything here is clear. You can figure it out. Everything you need is here. The most important thing is this part, the presets. There are 22 presets here for different simulators and different aircraft, but it's not necessary for the game to match exactly, right? So the presets here are for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and they also work for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. But in my opinion, there still aren't enough presets. It seems like 22 is a lot, but just imagine how many aircraft there are in flight simulators, for example, just in military ones alone, and how many in civil aviation. So there isn't a preset for every single aircraft here. Also, I think I would create some kind of more or less general preset for small planes, for jet aircraft, and for large airliners. Just to have a general preset like that, I think it would be useful here. On the main page, you'll see the stick here. We'll talk about it separately in a moment, the base itself, as well as pedals, and also a throttle quadrant panel, all of which can be connected and configured. And here we have a list of games and some issues regarding the software. If you attach a steering wheel to the base, yes, in car simulators, the wheel is immediately recognized there. Here I have that very MA3X stick installed, but the picture is completely different. The image is of another stick, the MH16, which is that military style device. As you can see, my stick is simpler, like a regular side stick in an Airbus. Here in the second tab, we can also carefully look at our various buttons, and you can certainly calibrate some of the available axes if they are indeed present, right? Like the sticks and so on. The third window is the most important, basically is where you configure the base. It's always a good idea to enable. I always set automatic calibration. So you just press the button and it calibrates everything for you automatically. Next, the third tab here is the most important one. This is where you set up the base. And you know, if I understand how to set up a base for car simulators, it's much simpler there. Here, let's go to expert settings. These are some settings for real experts. And here, well, honestly, it's kind of crazy. I have absolutely no idea what you can adjust here, and honestly it's really hard to figure all this out. That's exactly why I think that in car simulators you can spend an hour and understand what each slider does, what it's for. Here, how it's designated, but how to actually set up the plane for different military types and so on, that's what I don't understand. That's why, to start with, you need way more presets. That's it. Here we also have telemetry by axis, just like on the control surfaces, right? You can select a regular linear axis, right? You can also choose this kind if, again, I actually set up these kinds of axes because on the F-16, for example, it was tough at first. It's a very sensitive aircraft. You work with small inputs, so that's why I set the curves a bit differently, so that at the initial values, when you just slightly move the stick, it wouldn't jerk as much. Still, of course, I think this isn't entirely correct because it has its own drawbacks. That is, if you're working within small ranges, everything is fine, the aircraft isn't that sensitive. But as soon as you push just past the midpoint boom, and then it just starts jerking around. That's why, of course, I think it's better to set everything up linearly and just get used to the aircraft. And then we have the fourth and fifth tabs. Those are for throttle and pedal settings. I used car pedals, which I configured as a single axis using a program. That's it. But that's only if you already have more advanced devices, and I think those are really necessary specifically for military aviation in DCS, where there are a million different button combinations. And so these kinds of throttles, more powerful ones, yes, with a huge number of buttons are needed. So to sum up, again, in terms of simulator applications, the Moza cockpit for flight simulators is still a bit lacking at the moment. But I think they'll improve in the future, with more presets and support for the Russian language. And now let's move on to another thing, the stick. It's detachable. By the way, you can even attach a convenient handle here for immersive car simulators. Then simply switch the mode for the simulator and you can effectively use this versatile box as a dedicated gear shifter. As for my usual side stick handle here, it's all glossy and cool, and at first I was surprised that it doesn't even leave any marks. Like, I touch it here and there and wow, nothing at all. I thought it would get dirty easily, that it would smudge, but in reality that didn't seem to be the case. But now, after a week of use, yeah, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's all smudged, a bit greasy, covered in my fingerprints. So yeah, the gloss does shine. It's cool, but it does get dirty. The materials themselves are good, it feels nice to the touch. But again, this switch here, yeah, the up and down one, it feels really plasticky, and both tactile wise and in-game, it doesn't respond very well, and at times it even seemed to glitch a bit for me. I didn't really like this aspect here. On the right, we have switches that make it very convenient to look around. There's also this little red button which I use to lock onto targets, and of course the trigger. Right away I want to talk about this base, this handle. It doesn't have that mode you find on cheap side sticks where turning it left or right acts as rudder pedals. That's not available here, but apparently you can buy an additional accessory and then you'll be able to twist it left and right, which will serve as rudder control. But I think, why bother with that when you have such serious equipment? I believe it's worth investing in proper aviation pedals. So there's really not much more to say about this stick. It's strictly for civil aviation. Again, after flying in the DCS simulator, I realized this just doesn't cut it because there are too few buttons, and in military simulators you have to assign a ton of buttons. In Microsoft Flight Simulator there are also a ton of buttons, but everything is more relaxed. Their autopilot, everything is clickable. You can just poke around the cockpit, right? While you're flying there, you can get by without such expensive devices. But with military aircraft, that just doesn't work at all. I even specifically bought an F-16 with a clickable cockpit. I thought I'd be flying it. It's cool when you can poke at all those things in the cockpit yourself, but it's actually really inconvenient because if something goes wrong, you have to do everything quickly. So to sum up, I want to say that for military aviation, you need a lot of buttons and you just can't calmly poke around in there. As for the force feedback strength, the number 9 means that this base is rated at 9 Newton meters. I looked at its specs. 9 Newton meters is the constant value and 12 Newton meters is the peak. For me that was more than enough, even a bit too much, because comparing it to sim racing, for example, I used to drive with the Moza 12 with 12 Newton meters. That was more than enough for me. But if I had the Moza R9 like here with 9 Newton meters, right? Well, I think that would probably be enough for me too. That's it. But, you know, it's up to you to decide. I think the force feedback here is quite strong, but maybe some people might find it lacking. Again, probably another important factor is that if you install any kind of extension handles or levers, then the base should probably be more powerful because you'll have a longer lever arm and the base won't perform as well. Now, let's talk specifically about the mounting. There are some issues here. In my case, I also have this Moza flight base clamp for review. This is a special device clamp that allowed me to mount the base on the right side like this. It's more convenient for me this way. So my hand just rests here and that's it. Before this, I had the base mounted in the center. And here, I think there are some issues because for such serious bases, you really need to have some kind of cockpit for flight simulators. So guys, I've removed it. This base, it's quite heavy. And here you can clearly see the very clamp that I was also given for an in-depth review. This is a really cool and versatile thing because as you can see there are plenty of different mounting holes here and you can position it precisely however you like, whether you have an aluminum profile cockpit or just a regular desk. The complete set comes with these robust clamps, allowing you to securely attach this sturdy base to your computer desk. However, I must warn you right away, it doesn't seem all that convenient or practical to me, primarily because I had it initially set up here in the very center of my workspace. So you get it, ideally, as some of my subscribers told me, you should be steering in a way that, well, tickles your cojones. Basically, your base should be somewhere around here. In other words, it should be positioned like this. For my very first stream, I set it up right here in the center. So I flipped this mount and placed it exactly in the center here in the middle, and it turned out to be uncomfortable because it's always between your legs. You keep bumping into it and it's just in an awkward spot. So what should you do? Ideally, you should actually place it on the floor. Use the special handles that are available, which extend the entire control stick, like the ones used in helicopters, for example. And then, yes, it becomes more comfortable. But apparently you might also need a more powerful base because you'll have a much longer lever arm. The longer the lever, the less informative the feedback will be. In other words, it will need more power, but let me say right away, if you're going to mount it on a desk, think about this point, because with this clamp, you can of course set it higher, you can put it on the desk a bit lower or in the middle, but even if you set it at this level and sit underneath it, your hand will be positioned too high, you see? That's exactly why I positioned it to the right like this. That's where I usually have my gear shifter. But this way, this way I can both fly in a flight simulator and then swap out the handle to use this box as a gearbox in sequential mode or in H-pattern mode. There are also special seats like the one on my motion platform. Yes, they're specially cut out here so that this base can fit in and be installed. So ideally you should think this part through. But again, if you have the money for such a serious device, I think you'll have no trouble affording a cockpit, or maybe you already have one. Or at the very least, you can always place this base to your right. I think that's the most convenient option, because having it in the center is just not very comfortable. Even at a desk when you're sitting, if you place this base to your right like I did, then you won't have this problem. As for the mounting, again, just so you know, here in the center we have these T-shaped mounts. I'm not sure what they're called. Well, for a standard aluminum profile, you can easily place it here and smoothly move it up and down. And underneath, we also have a lot of different mounting options available if you plan to securely screw it in. There are indeed mounts here for bolts of various diameters, so I think you'll have absolutely no trouble at all securing it firmly. The only thing is, it probably wouldn't hurt to add some additional mounts somewhere on the side here as well, just for extra stability. But overall, just take a really good look. It is truly, truly huge. So do keep that in mind as well. It's heavy and it's big, because at the beginning of the video you probably thought it was somewhere off to the right, pretty far away, and that it was, well, fairly modest in size. No, it's heavy and it's big. Heaviness is great. Heaviness means reliability. And of course, there are no plastic parts here. If we carefully look at the entire body, everything here is completely made of solid metal. And here, as you can see, there's leather. I've been riding with it for about a week, maybe a little more. So far, nothing seems to have worn out here. I think the leather is of pretty good quality. But again, a week isn't really enough time to judge. I can't really say anything about that yet. Things like this need to be tested for 2 or 3 months, and then you can see how they hold up. But overall, the quality of the materials here is decent. As for the price, guys, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check how much it costs. But basically, it's comparable to the price of a base for car simulators. Basically, the cost is more or less the same. Also, don't forget that this box, I almost said, this base can be used not only for flights, but also like a gear shifter for car simulators. So, of course, you can't really compare them, and unfortunately, I have nothing to compare it with if we try to compare this base with force feedback for flight simulators. If I compare it to some other joysticks without force feedback, well, that would be completely pointless, because of course this one is going to be much better, even if the other one had some super fancy flight sim grip. But without force feedback, it's just not the same thing. It's the same story as with steering wheels. I always say, you absolutely have to buy a steering wheel with force feedback, you know, with 900 degrees of rotation. I could say the same thing here, but I'm not sure. It seems to me that when it comes to flight simulators, you can probably fly quite effectively without immediate feedback, still genuinely enjoy the experience, and perform well enough. But the emotions that force feedback gives you during any kind of flight, it's really amazing, because, well, again, comparing DCS and Microsoft Flight Simulator, of course, in Microsoft Flight Simulator, if I'm like, wow, the propeller is working, and when the propeller is at low RPM, your stick actually shakes. I've shown this on stream. Then you add some RPM, just like in a car basically, right? When you just start it up, maybe you've noticed you turn on the heater or the air conditioner and the RPM drops a little and the car starts to shake a bit. It's the same here. All of that is transmitted to the stick. Then you increase the RPM, the propeller stabilizes and the RPM goes up. That's it, the vibration goes away. You lower the flaps, you lower the landing gear. All of this, of course, is felt here on the stick. It's all really cool. But it doesn't even come close to DCS. When you're flying a military aircraft and making a turn, your ailerons shake, and all of that is transmitted to the control stick. Well, damn, I'll say it again, I really truly enjoyed it, I absolutely loved it. But again, in my considered opinion, this is just my own personal view. This kind of essential thing is a definite must-have for military aircraft. That's precisely where it truly shines and excels. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't use it somewhere in a more relaxed setting. You can, but in my opinion, the enjoyment you get from military simulators like DCS or IL-2 Sturmovik is much greater. And unfortunately, I haven't tested it on helicopters yet, because it was only on the last day that I figured out how to combine my car pedals into a single axis to control everything properly. Otherwise, I would have tried helicopters too, because people say, well, my subscribers told me that it really shines even more with helicopters. But again, guys, you definitely need to properly configure it. You need to set up a comprehensive config in the game, launch it from the Moza cockpit, and make sure to diligently apply presets, but there simply aren't enough suitable presets. And that, in my honest opinion, is a significant downside. You'll have to figure out precisely how to set things up yourself, or simply wait until Moza truly improves it a bit and adds even more new aircraft and new presets. Because otherwise, if you pick a certain aircraft, you have to find a preset that's at least somewhat suitable, you know? And of course, I just can't imagine what it's like to experience flying something like the F-16, which has a stick with force sensors and minimal movement, but no force feedback. You just won't feel it at all. You know what I mean? You just won't be able to feel the difference in control between aircraft without force feedback, at least that's how I see it. So it's a cool thing, it's fun, but again, you need to set it up and position it properly. It gives you emotions. But when you play some serious simulators, flight simulators, you realize how much more you need to buy to really enjoy the game and how much more you need to remember, because in DCS, several times during several streams, I just burned out. Because there's so much, such a flood of information. Man, it's so tough in there. How do you launch a missile? How does the navigation work? Screw it. Just starting the plane, taking off and landing, that's not a problem at all. But figuring out how each weapon works, how to lock onto a target, how to evade, when to deploy countermeasures. Oh man, my head actually started to hurt. I spent 3 days straight in DCS studying the F-16 and I probably didn't even learn half of it. And when I finally gave up and decided to just fly any mission, I had already forgotten how to start up, how to turn on the systems. Basically, everything I learned at the beginning, I forgot. So damn, honestly, I ended up enjoying just chilling more, and I'll probably keep chilling on my channel from time to time. Maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll play through a career in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because everything there is calm, you press something, you remember it all, everything is kind of unhurried. But in DCS, flying military planes, damn, you have to lock onto a target, you have to do it in time, there's stuff going on with the radar back and forth. There's just so much information. But damn, honestly, playing DCS while flying in it, I actually enjoyed that more. Alright, I've already said this 100 times, DCS, DCS, DCS. Yeah, it's an awesome flight simulator, but you have to live in it, you have to spend so much time in it, and that's that. I hope you'll add something in the comments, especially those of you who have a lot of experience with flight simulators. Maybe I got something wrong somewhere or missed something. Again, I invite you to the comments, you can correct me there and we'll discuss it. But these are just my impressions as someone experiencing a flight simulator and the force feedback base for the first time. It's really cool that now we have these kinds of devices even for flight simulators. That's all for now, friends. This was Kus. And you were watching the Kus-Kus Racing channel. See you at the next race. Bye.